Hey everyone, my name is Jack Bourne. I am the founder of Deadline Funnel. And with me today is Brittany Bennion. She is a content strategist and brand photographer, host of the Post for Success podcast, and creator of the Content Collective. As an expert in personal branding, she is sought out by women entrepreneurs across the world. Brittany helps creatives gain the visibility they need to stand out in their field and build their know, like, and trust factor. Brittany's superpower is to help women feel comfortable and confident in their content creation. Brittany, it's awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to be talking about today is how we can all elevate our brand. Before we get into the content, why don't you give a little bit of backstory about how you became an expert on brand, and yeah, just tell us how you got into this wonderful world of helping online creatives.
Great. So I have either owned, run, managed a small business for over 15 years. So small businesses are like, that's my love, that's my passion, and working with different entrepreneurs in all various types of fields. I really started out my own personal journey in my own business as a photographer. And like many other photographers, I dabbled in just about anything that you can think of. I've done newborns and weddings and families. But at some point in time, I said that there is this new growing field, a need for people to have content regularly in their business. Once everything shifted to online and social media and connecting with content marketing, like the need for people to show up visually in their business exploded. So I shifted everything that I was doing to helping female entrepreneurs grow their personal brand through photos. So I was taking the skills that I had learned with business and the skills that I learned as a photographer and growing my own business, married them together and started working for brands and helping people show up for their personal brand. But the number one problem that I found was that these women had these businesses and knew that they needed imagery, but didn't understand what a brand was and how to market themselves. So then I knew that part of my job was to do the deep digging and diving and understanding of what makes a brand, why it's important. Are you even a brand? Which, hint, hint, you all are. And teach them so that's kind of how I went about my journey and learning and growing, because I knew that I had to help serve my clients in the very best way. And it's evolved into brand strategist and content strategist.
So early in my career, and this is going back to the early 2000s, I really cut my teeth on learning direct response marketing. And one of the people who were the experts I was listening to at the time really would kind of bash brand building, and they would talk about, brand building's for, Coca-Cola. Brand building is for these big corporations who can afford to, spend a bunch of money on a Super Bowl ad just to get their name out there. And so it was really about you need to put messages out into the marketplace where you can measure, okay, I put this Google ad out there, or I paid for this banner. How much revenue, how many clients came back as a result of that? And while I think that that's a really powerful strategy and a great place to start out, especially if someone is bootstrapping, over the years, my philosophy about the importance of a brand has evolved and changed. So when you talk about a brand, can you go into the importance of how would you define a brand? For someone who's like a solopreneur or a small business owner, and why is it important?
Jack, I think you're exactly right. So many of us think of brands as Apple and Nike and Microsoft, these big, huge brands. And so we don't really attribute that to us. Or they may think a brand is your font, your logos, your color palette. Go get a template. You're all done. You don't have to think about that. And I say that your brand is none of those. In fact, yes, those are elements of a brand, but what your brand is, it's your vibe, it's your energy. It's what you bring to the table that's so uniquely you that will set you apart from anybody else. Think about all of your competitors in whatever industry you're in. Most of the time, you're generally selling or offering the exact same services maybe at the exact same price, maybe in the exact same way. So what sets you apart? That's you. You have a unique energy that you're bringing to your offer. You have a unique way about going about it, and you like jive with people differently. So if you can understand that and then capitalize on that, not only are you going to be happier as a business owner, but you're going to grow faster with people that you connect with.
Awesome. So, how do we start to build our own brand? How do we start to identify, like, is a brand something that we already have, but we need to sort of shape it and mold it, or is it something that we don't really have until we consciously go about creating it?
Well, it depends, because there's two ways to look at it. A lot of times you are either, if you're a solopreneur, we're talking personal brand. So that means that you should be the face of your brand. You're the one that that's interacting with your clients. You're the one that's teaching the online course. You're the person that people want to come to learn from, or to grow from, or to receive whatever offer you have. Then we also have people who have teams. Maybe they have a name, and so their customers and their clients are not necessarily as familiar with the people who work behind the scenes to keep the company working. Both of those are brands. So the approach to it is quite similar, but there are some different nuances. When it comes to a solopreneur, which is what I specialize in working with solopreneurs, you have to recognize first that you are a brand, and that if you start to hone your message around the things that you're trying to teach, or you're trying to sell, or the services you're trying to provide, and you do it in a unique, repetitive way, then that in and of itself is building brand awareness around you. I teach all about, there's 4 different pillars when it comes to building your brand. And I would love to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, let's dive in. So why don't you share those 4 pillars with us? Because I know, one of the ways that I've heard brand explained is it's the emotional aftertaste of doing business with you, and it's also the way that when you have a brand, and it's a brand that resonates with your audience, that's going to really increase the lifetime value of your clients. It's going to help them decide, this is someone that I want to do business with. And they're a lot more likely to purchase product 2 or service 3 from you. And so that's really how you grow and scale a business over time, is by continually investing in your brand. So let's go ahead and dive in. What's pillar number 1?
Absolutely. So pillar number 1 is visibility. And this is really important. I talk about, when it comes to being a brand, you have to have the mindset that it's okay for you to show up and be seen. So you want people to see you. A lot of times we think that we can hide behind our logo, behind our website, and none of that is helping you. Back in the old days, back when people were looking for businesses to work with, what would they do? They would pull out a phone book and they would open it up to whatever category they would go to. And they would find the first one. There would be like 20 or 30 listed. They would find the first one, and that's the first number that they would call. So all of the businesses were named A1 service, right?
Or AAA.
Or triple A. This is, so for all of you youngins that are listening, right? This is how those A names all began. It started back with the phone book and making sure that they were listed alphabetically. But now for us, we can't hide behind a phone book. We can't hide behind those types of marketing tactics. Instead, we really want to build connection with people. So the first step is visibility, knowing that it is okay where you are, no matter where you are. You don't have to lose 10 pounds. You don't have to look a certain way. You don't have to be older or younger or anything. You are exactly where you need to be able to be seen and have your message heard in the world. So understanding that's really the foundation for everything business. Have you learned that too, Jack, that like having the mindset to be a business owner takes you to a new level in your business?
Yeah, I've found that there's always a lot of internal work to be done to reach that external goal. It's like, what's holding a lot of people back, I'm speaking for myself here, is not necessarily like learning the next skill or the next tactic, although those things are necessary. A lot of times it's getting over whatever sort of insecurities that we have. And so having the ability to be visible is one that personally I struggle with myself. And so I can really relate to that one.
Absolutely. But you can't go any further until you're like understanding it's my time to step up. People want to hear from me and I have a message to share to the world. When you can get that piece, you are well on your way to building a brand. The next step is vision. So when we talk about vision, a lot of times we think about what we see in front of us. And I say vision goes two ways. It's encompassing everything that's in front of you, ahead of you, and also everything that you've taken behind you as well. So vision is our second pillar in creating a standout brand. And this is understanding who you are, your unique ability and offering, and pairing that with the ideal person and community you want to connect with. We know basic business 101, you need to find your ideal client. I like to define it as a community, your ideal customer community. But if you understand how your uniqueness and the people you want to serve, how you compare those two together, that's going to allow you to have the vision, the direction in your business. Now, you had asked earlier, Jack, like, do we just start with our brand or do we slowly develop into a brand? And this key pillar is really important. You have to do that digging, that work to say, what am I doing that's helping me stand out that's different? And then how am I connecting to the people that I really, really want to work with? No longer does it work for us to say, we want to work with a 20-year-old man who's 6 foot that's, who likes to shop at Nike or anything. Like, the demographics in our world, when we talk about finding our ideal client, start to kind of fade into the background. We need to be focusing more on the psychographics of understanding our clients, because we are in such a diverse world that we want to be very inclusive in our business, but we can differentiate people based on their values, based on their desires, based on their goals and their dreams. And when you start to talk to that deeper level, you really open up the vision and start to really hone in and narrow down your message.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what's the next pillar?
The next pillar are your visuals. And this is really what people think about when they're coming and talking about a brand. They think about their logos, they think about the graphics, they think about their fonts and their colors. And this is fun and great, but it's also vital. But here's the key. The key is in repetition. You want people to easily recognize that whatever content you're creating and putting out the world is connected to you. So this is really where it comes to, I always say, if you confuse your clients, then you lose your clients. Confused clients don't buy. So your purpose in creating a brand, not only with your messaging, but also your visuals, which is our third step, your visuals, is that you want to make it so simple, so easy for somebody to recognize the content that you're creating, that it's coming from you, so that their brain that's working overtime with the millions of messages that they're getting on a daily basis, they can focus and say, oh, yep, this is from Brittany. Oh, yep, this is from Jack. Oh, yeah, this is an email from Deadline Funnels. So that you can quickly start to get into the meat of what it is that you have to offer. If some people don't understand and can't quickly recognize because you're using the same templates, the same logo, the same colors, then they're going to swipe on past you. They're going to just breeze on by what you have to offer because they're not having that connection with you.
So for this step, for someone who's a solopreneur and they want to have a bigger brand presence and more visibility and put their vision out into the world, would you recommend that they hire a graphic designer, or how would you recommend that they figure out a way to make sure that their colors and their logos and everything are going to be crisp and look awesome, and that people are going to recognize them right away?
I definitely think you should consult with professionals on this. As solopreneurs, we wear the hats on everything. We're doing everything, but that doesn't mean that we're an expert in everything, nor should we. So you need to determine in your business what level and extent you can actually attain and work with in your business. So sometimes for me, my school of thought is that you, as the owner of your business, know your business the best. You know who you're trying to reach. You know your unique offering, exactly what we talked about in step number 2. You have the vision, and nobody else is going to care or understand about your business and your vision better than you. So if you decide to work with a graphic designer, or a brand designer, which is wonderful, you have to make sure that you are connecting and communicating that information so succinctly to them so that they understand and are a part of that vision. And then you're going to have wonderful outcome. Too many times people skip that vision step and they just say, I'm going to go hire somebody to do it. And that person doesn't understand the graphic designer, even though they are incredibly talented, but if they don't understand the vision that the owner has, they'll produce something that just isn't in alignment. And then you're out a lot of money because they can be quite expensive. So you have to do the work first and then determine the level of which you are able to, in your business, hire somebody out. So you can definitely do it as a DIY. You can do it something simple as heading onto Creative Market and grabbing some templates. I love Canva, and I teach a lot of people how to figure out their visuals in my own course. And then, of course, you can hire really wonderful graphic designers as well.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on people getting things out of order? You know, one of the mistakes I made decades ago, and it's embarrassing to talk about this, but I don't think I'm alone, is that I came up with a business idea with a friend of mine, and we spent several months dreaming up what the name of the business was going to be and creating business cards and a logo. And you know, in essence, you know, you know where this story is going. Like it never got off the ground. We spent so much time on the business cards. We're like, you know, after a while, you just realize, you know, we didn't actually have a go-to market plan. We didn't identify who we were going after. So we put the cart before the horse. So when would be the best time for an entrepreneur to invest in a graphic designer and consult with someone, or hire someone to really take over their their visuals?
Well, here's the thing. There's really no right or wrong way to do it, because when it comes down to it, Jack, that was such a learning experience for you that you will never, ever forget that. So just know how you go about in your business. You're always going to be constantly testing and learning from that and hopefully learning from it and growing. When should somebody hire a graphic designer? My school of thought is that after you have done the deep work and you intimately understand what your message is, who you want to connect to, and why you have a unique offer. A lot of times we think that it's fun to go on to, especially as women creatives who I work with almost exclusively. We think it's fun to go onto Pinterest. We think it's fun to play around with colors, but that's generally working, right? We're procrastinating in the name of working, when instead we do need to do some of that deep diving. We need to be talking to people. We need to be trying things out, right? You have to test. You have to throw something out into the world, see if that's what's sticking, with intention, of course, and then move forward from there.
All right. So just a quick recap, because I think there's one left. You talked about visibility. You talked about vision. The third one was the creatives, but
your visuals.
Visuals. Okay. All right. I see where we're going. A lot of V's. So what's the fourth pillar?
Well, you've figured out my pattern. The last one is viability. Viability, meaning how do we get our business and brand to actually live, grow, thrive, and be viable? Because here's the thing, you cannot be everywhere all the time, on every single platform. It literally is just not feasible for most entrepreneurs, specifically solopreneurs. So the next step is being able to kind of put everything that you've learned, everything that you've created, and put it into a machine that works for you. And so having your brand, I like to teach about using different scheduling apps, having systems, processes, automations, so that the things that you do on repeat are simplified and you can actually amplify your message by doing that. We think that maybe we need to recreate the wheel every single time. We've got to create something new. We've got to come up with something new. And that's actually the opposite of a good marketing practice. The best thing that you can do when it comes to marketing is understand your core messages and then repeat it until you are blue in the face, and then start on over and do it again.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Something that I talk about ad nauseum is this concept of the flywheel, which I didn't come up with, but this whole idea that business, when you look back at, let's use a fitness example. So if someone is in the prime of health and vitality, if you ask, okay, which push-up got you to that point, or which minute on the stairmaster got you to that point, the answer is, well, it all contributed. So in that same way, business is like a flywheel, and initially it takes a lot of energy. You're pushing and making that flywheel inch forward, inch by inch by inch, but then it gets easier and the momentum starts to pick up. And then after a while, if you keep pushing on that flywheel and you don't switch to some shiny object over here and a shiny object over here and keep changing things up, if you keep focused, that flywheel will gain so much momentum that all of a sudden you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. So I 100% agree on staying focused. It's really, really difficult sometimes because we're awash in so many shiny objects, but that's great advice.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. It's true. Repetition is super important, and being able to put systems and processes into place really is the key to your business. If you're seeing somebody being successful and you're like, how are they growing? How are they able to be everywhere at all the time? It's because they know they have a step-by-step system. And they just follow it. They take the emotion out of it. They take the stress and overwhelm out of it. It's just like plug and play. If you start to see and watch people, you're going to find out, you're going to be able to start to see their exact automations. And you say, oh, that's how they did it. And then if you replicate that or find those systems in your own business, it's going to make things so much easier. And that's how you amplify your message.
Can you give a quick story of someone's business that you helped transform? And share whatever details you feel comfortable sharing. But someone comes to you and you help them with their brand messaging, either through your course, which I want to hear about in a little bit, or you're working with them directly one-on-one. Tell us a story of how that was able to transform someone's business, and what their business was like before and what it was like after.
Awesome. I have the most amazing client. She's a yoga instructor out of Michigan. And the interesting thing about this is she's in the fitness industry. If you think of any industry where it may feel oversaturated, it's health and wellness. There's so many people doing so many different things. And she decided that she wanted to start a yoga studio in 2020. So anybody who knows anything, remember where we're at in 2020. It's full-fledged pandemic at this point in time. Nobody's in person. Nobody's doing anything. And she decides that she wants to start a yoga studio. So we worked together. And one of the things that we decided to capitalize on for her and her unique message was that she had a different way of looking at yoga. When we think of a yoga instructor, there are some very stereotypical ideas of what a yoga instructor in a yoga class looks like. I mean, perhaps it's a very zen, quiet studio on the beach, a very healthy, fit, person who's, female, who's leading this, and we've got music that's buzzing in the background. You think about this. And I cannot tell you, she was almost the exact opposite. She played gangster rap in her yoga sessions. She was heavy set. She couldn't perform all of the yoga moves that you think a yoga instructor could, but she was able to understand and embrace her visibility. She knew that she had to be in front of the camera, in her videos, with her clients, showing up all the time. She had a vision, knowing that she was unique herself and that the people she wanted to connect with would be attracted to that. And she honed in and focused on that. And then we worked together to make sure that her graphics and her visuals were right on point, showing her energy, showing her vibe and what it was like to work with her. And then, of course, she put it into a machine and let it run. In 2020, health and wellness industry, she was able to double her business year after year until here we are at 2022.
That's amazing. So when you say put it into a machine, what sort of, is there a specific type of system that you teach people? Is there a specific, are these specific tools that you're talking about? What do you mean when you say a machine?
Okay, when I say a machine, I'm talking about, I don't have a specific thing. I'm not saying this is what you should use. But say, for example, Deadline Funnels is one of those machines. There are so many cool pieces of software and integration and technology that we can use to simplify our business. And I know we're going to be talking here about Deadline Funnels too. But when it talks about, like, for example, if you're posting on social media, scheduling apps, that makes it so simple and it takes away all of that time for you to be in the moment and posting. Email automations, having somebody jump into a funnel, send their email address, and then they go through a 10 email series over the course of 2-3 weeks, and you don't even have to think about it. It's saving you time, it's saving you energy, it's saving you money, and generating more in your business. Same thing happens when it comes to like Deadline Funnels. You have a machine that you put it into, it's creating that urgency for your business in a way that you don't have to show up in an urgent or frantic way, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Maybe, yeah. So maybe we should talk about how you're starting to leverage evergreen in your business. So where, we were talking about this a little bit before we started the video interview. So where are you in your business in terms of going from doing launches and programs like that to evergreen? Are you still like, how are you evolving your business currently?
I love this question because I am in the thick of it. I have now done 4 live launches of my course, the Brand Builders Bootcamp, where I teach these 4 pillars of brand foundation. And live launching is great, but right now it's not something that's going to fit into my lifestyle. I have actually pivoted over to an amazing membership, but the people in my membership are going to need the things that I teach in my course. So I am now shifting from live launching into the evergreen world, which it may feel like, oh, she just sells a course. She has an online course. It's the exact same thing, but they are 2 totally different beasts. And so I know that primarily Deadline Funnels is really, really key on that evergreen. So I'm so excited to start to implement that into my business. So people who come into my membership are able to get to know, like, and trust me a little bit faster. And then when they realize that maybe they're missing some key elements in their brand, they can go ahead and run through my funnel that's set up to create that urgency, that need, that desire. And so I'm looking forward to getting everything set up on an evergreen account.
Awesome. Yeah. So we were talking about this machine, so different machines for different types of businesses, but it sounds like you've set it up like a lot of our clients have, where when someone indicates that they're ready, either through their behavior or, maybe they've been through a program or they've clicked on certain things, it sounds like you're taking them into a sort of a launch sequence or an email sequence that then, it's delivering the right message to the right person at the right time, and then really bringing them across the finish line. They already have the know, like, and trust, but now it's the urgency that's on automation thanks to Deadline Funnel to help them cross that threshold from I'm not sure if I'm ready for this to, yep, I'm going to dive in and take action.
Oh, exactly. Because it's a process. It's an emotional process too for a client to come through and decide if this is right for you or not. And if I were to literally like hold their hand and take them through it, every single one, I couldn't serve to the capacity to my ability. But having, like I said, a machine, which is what Deadline Funnels is so good at, having a machine like that, it helps me once again to amplify my voice, to amplify my message, and to serve in a better, simplified way.
Awesome. So why don't we tell people how they can find you? So first of all, I think we already covered who you're serving, but why don't we go over it again? Like, who's the ideal client for you, and then how can they join your community or find out more about you?
Right. So I love working with female entrepreneur creatives. I work specifically with coaches and people who are creating online courses. You can find me anywhere at Brit Bennion. That's BRIT, just one T, Bennion. That's my website, brittbennion.com. And anywhere else you can find me. That's where you can connect with me to hear about my podcast, to learn more about my membership, or even the course in which we talked all about how to build your brand messaging and your brand pillars.
Fantastic. Well, Britt, this was great. I know that my audience. There's a lot of people in my audience that I think would be perfect for the services and the information that you have. But I know that this content that you shared about being more visible and having the vision and the other parts of your pillars is really going to make an impact for people. So thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing this information.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.